The biggest moment that came out during this hearing today, which was about whether to release public records, was a statement that was made by the prosecutor. And we've heard before kind of allusions to the fact that investigators think that there might be someone else who might have been involved in the killings. And, you know, we heard at the press conference a few weeks ago, they said this is still a very ongoing investigation to see if there's anyone else involved. Today, the prosecutor told the judge, in trying to argue why the case and the records should remain sealed, he said, "We believe Richard Allen is not the only actor involved in this." To date, that is the most direct statement so far by investigators and the prosecutor, that they believe that these murders were not committed by one single person.
So two big issues coming into the courtroom today. One, is the probable cause affidavit, are those records going to be released? And was he granted bail? He's being held without bail, saying that the case was flimsy against him. What were the decisions on that?
Well, first we'll deal with the bail issue. It was just a request late in the day yesterday by Richard Allen's attorneys to grant bail and to ask the judge to have a bail hearing. That's actually now going to take place in February. The judge said that she will hear that. She wanted to leave plenty of time, and the court's dockets, the judge and the courtroom, the availability, it's not going to be until after the holidays and in February that's going to happen. On the issue of whether to release the documents, the judge heard from both Richard Allen's attorneys as well as from the prosecutor. She heard the evidence. She got some evidence and heard their testimony and why they think that it either should or should not be released, the probable cause affidavit. She's taking that under advisement, and she said she will rule on that. We believe nothing is going to come out on that today. Whether it's tomorrow, whether it's after Thanksgiving, we're not sure, but we expect it to be within the next 10 days.
We're used to the wheels of justice turning slowly.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to check back with you in a little bit.
One of them being the fact that the prosecutor didn't believe that Richard Allen wasn't the only one in this case. So that's one of the main takeaways. Something else to point out, too, he presented the judge 4 pieces of what he considered to be key evidence in this fight to keep these documents sealed. And one of them, the third aspect of this that he submitted, was actually a written letter from Becky Patty. And of course, that's the grandmother of Libby German. That letter was asking the judge and the court to keep those documents sealed. The other thing that the prosecutor submitted today was a petition, and it had more than 40,000 signatures on it from community members who agreed that the documents should be sealed. And one other quote that caught my attention from the prosecutor, a lot of people have been saying, you know, well, it's in the public's interest to release those documents, to unseal them so we know what actually happened. The prosecutor said that is the public interest, finding justice for Libby and Abby. He said, and if we release those documents, it could interfere, so to speak, with that investigation. At this
hearing coming up, I believe, on the 22nd, that's got some information that led to the arrest of Richard Allen, the suspect. If that is allowed to be given to the public, is that going to compromise the investigation in any way?
No, I don't think at this point it will. And I think it'll answer a lot of the questions that people have. And
will we find out how we got to this point with that information?
Yeah, it'll be much clearer.
So that was his argument. On the flip side, a few of the key takeaways from the defense attorney, they were saying, you know, a lot of this, when you look at similar cases, past cases, this is a unique case nonetheless, but he said it's at this point causing a practical problem, is what he called it, because at this point we're creating more question and more stir about what actually happened rather than just putting the facts of the case out there. So that was one of his key arguments, of course, on behalf of Richard Allen.
And their indication was that they do not have a strong case against Richard Allen.
That's exactly right. And we actually got the chance to talk to both defense attorneys afterwards. And we asked them, we said, what is it in the documents that you've been able to read that points to your client? And he kind of gave us this shrug, and he said, you can answer that question when you read it for yourself, too, because as they're concerned, there is not that direct evidence there. So certainly from both sides, an important day.
All right, so this is the motion that was filed by the prosecutor this morning in court. I wanted to read it to you and give you some of my initial thoughts. So it reads, now comes Nicholas C. McLeland, Carroll County prosecuting attorney, being first duly sworn upon his oath, and requests the court to prohibit the parties, counsel, law enforcement officials, so that would include Doug Carter, court personnel, coroner, and family members from disseminating information or releasing any extrajudicial statements by means of public communication. He is trying to shut everyone up. This is basically a gag order. In support of said request, the state shows the following. 1, that the state filed 2 counts of murder against the defendant on October 28, 2022 in Carroll County Circuit Court. 2, that the case has received extensive treatment in the local, national, and international news media. 3, that the media accounts concerning this cause have contained an undue number of statements relating not only to the progress of the investigation, but conclusions of the investigation, some of which have been untrue. Pause. So the same person who's actively blocking all of the arrest information and who has prevented any investigative updates about the case for the last few years is now complaining about the lack of factual information in the media and in the public. This complaint could easily be resolved, Nick, if you just release the facts. That's a moot point. I don't think you thought that one through. Number 4, that it is reasonable to believe that the media will cover this cause of action extensively, and the publicity will prejudice a fair trial. Frankly, where there is any sort of injustice, there will be a spotlight. Specifically pertaining to children, to the murders of 2 children that the country has grown to love and care about, the media is not going anywhere. And I think it's interesting now that there are facts to be revealed. The media is all of a sudden a huge problem when the family has done nothing but encourage their own media spotlight. So I think that's ironic. And it's interesting that now everybody cares about a fair trial for the accused child murderer more than keeping the community safe from his accomplices, which the prosecutor also revealed today that they believe he did not act alone. So this is a public safety concern. This is a lot of concerns, and I just think it's interesting that now all of a sudden, when the affidavit's going to be revealed and all your secrets are going to come out, now it's about a fair trial. I think to ensure a fair trial, I think the best thing to do is to follow the law, which says that the public has access to this information, not only to protect Alan's rights to due process, but for public safety. The community has a right to this information. And to then flip it on the public who have been strung along, who have been emotionally manipulated to show up to every press conference, tuning in to every story, clicking on every headline to try to get some sort of information, some sort of objective fact, or even just like closure for what happened to these 2 little girls back in 2017. Now all of a sudden, we're the bad guys, right? For caring. And I think that's incredibly manipulative language. So number 5, that the additional statements and media coverage in the news is likely to produce prejudice in the community, as if that didn't already exist, making it impossible to have a fair and impartial jury to ensure that all parties have a fair trial. Again, it's that lazy dismissal. To ensure a fair trial. Ensuring a fair trial is following the law, like I just said. I've been talking about this since long before Richard Allen's arrest. There are some deep-seated corruption, family secrets that the people of Delphi don't want to come out, at least the guilty ones. So it's clear who has information to hide. It's clear that this order is just trying to shut people up and weaponize the law. Look at this last one, that an order in place would ensure that the parties abide by Indiana Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 3.6. Like, how long did you spend parsing through rules and regulations to try to find something to justify your behavior here? It's gross. These people weaponize the law to continue doing what they're doing and escape accountability. I believe the judge will release the affidavit. She has to. I don't think he met the threshold here for clear and convincing evidence that keeping the information sealed is in the best interest of the public. So I think it's all going to come out, and I hope with as little redactions as possible, because we deserve to know. It's interesting how just less than a month ago, Carter was thanking the media, saying how grateful he was that we haven't, abandoned them, and we haven't, gotten too frustrated with the lack of information that we no longer care. And then you have the prosecutor here now demonizing the media and the public. It's just incredibly clear what's going on here. This is a desperate attempt to save his own ass. And it's very clear he's in over his head. And he's not competent. Honestly, he should recuse himself for a number of different reasons, including his familial relationship to the victim. Definitely presents a conflict of interest. And I think that this, it's very clear who's trying to hide secrets, and that these people are bad news.